your life at every level of corruption. It begins smaller than you expect. You take the extra office supplies home because the cabinet is full and no one is counting. You stretch the truth on a form by a few numbers because the system feels impersonal and the difference feels harmless. You accept a favor that is a little too generous and tell yourself you would have done the same job anyway. Nothing about it feels like a turning point. It feels like practicality. The world is full of people bending small rules. You are simply no longer pretending you are different.
The first time money changes hands under the table, the air feels slightly different. Your heart beats harder while it is happening, and then settles once it is done. You wait for guilt to arrive in a clean, decisive wave. What arrives instead is quieter and more complicated. Relief. Justification. The story you tell yourself about why it was necessary, or temporary, or earned. You put the money away and notice that the sun still rises the next morning. The lack of immediate consequence becomes its own kind of permission.
You start to see opportunities that used to be invisible. A delayed approval. A contract that could lean one direction instead of another. Information that has value if it reaches the right person at the right time. You tell yourself you are only being realistic. Everyone who gets ahead understands how things actually work. The ones who stay pure, stay poor, or so the quiet logic goes. You practice the language of soft corruption. Let's discuss this offline. There might be a way. I can look into it.
As the amounts grow, so does the architecture around them. You no longer handle everything yourself. People appear who make the details cleaner. Layers form between your decisions and their visible results. You remain close enough to benefit and far enough to protect your self-image. You still go home to ordinary rooms. You still buy ordinary things. The contrast becomes useful. Ordinary life makes the other life harder to detect, even inside your own mind.
You learn the weight of being useful to powerful people. Doors open. Problems disappear. Invitations arrive that once would have been impossible. At the same time, the circle of people you fully trust grows smaller. Conversations develop undercurrents. Kindness begins to feel like it might have a price. You become skilled at reading motives. The skill is protective. It is also lonely. You start testing loyalty in small ways. You notice who hesitates. There is a particular moment that comes later when you realize you are no longer bending a system. You are helping to maintain one. Rules still exist on paper. In practice, they flex for the right people, and you have become one of the people who understands the flex. Publicly, you may still speak about fairness and standards. Privately, you know how outcomes are shaped. The gap between the two versions of reality grows so familiar that you stop noticing how wide it is.
Higher up, the corruption no longer feels like separate acts. It feels like the water you swim in. Entire networks operate by informal agreements that never appear in official records. Investigations, if they come, can be slowed or redirected. Public stories can be managed. You acquire the quiet power of being costly to remove. That power is real. It is also a kind of cage. Visibility becomes dangerous. Trust becomes transactional. The ordinary friendships of earlier years feel distant, almost naive. You tell yourself you are simply clear-eyed about human nature, that the world was already like this and you only stopped pretending. There is truth in the observation. There is also a cost that is harder to name. Something in you that once flinched grows quieter.
The flinch was not only fear, it was a signal. When it fades, the decisions become smoother, and the nights sometimes become heavier.
People below you still see a version of success, the ease, the doors that open. They do not see the permanent calculation, the careful management of appearances, the knowledge of what would happen if the wrong light fell on the wrong arrangement. They do not feel the particular loneliness of being known mostly for what you can provide.
At the highest levels, the money and the influence are no longer the main point. The main point is insulation, distance from consequence, the ability to shape outcomes while remaining untouched by them. Few people reach this place. Those who do often discover that absolute protection is also a form of isolation. The ordinary world, with its smaller stakes and cleaner sleep, becomes something you can observe but no longer fully re-enter. Looking back, the path rarely felt like a dramatic descent. It felt like a series of reasonable adjustments. Each one was small enough to justify. Each one made the next one easier. The architecture that once seemed clever becomes the structure you must keep maintaining. Walking away grows more expensive than continuing. Most people never climb far. They take the small liberties and stop. A few keep going, drawn by the relief of control, the proof of advantage, the quiet thrill of operating by different rules. The view from the upper levels is wide, the air is thin, and the door back to the simpler life closed so gradually that you did not hear it latch. That is the progression. Corruption rarely arrives as a villain. It arrives as convenience, then as necessity, then as identity. And by the time you feel the full weight of what you have become, the ordinary person you once were is already difficult to find.